Hi, it's George Nordhaus, and this is Monday morning, and something that's going to affect every single person listening to this, and every person in the insurance industry at some time or another, machines in your future. And when I saw an article by Steve Anderson, I think it was on LinkedIn, I said, "Oh my gosh, we got to tell the people about this because this is fantastic." Uh, Steve, everybody probably knows, is Anderson Network. He's been so well known over the years. He's started as an agent and end up being a consultant to all kinds of people on automation. He's the guy you go to automation when you want to know which agency management system to use or whatever. Speaks everywhere around the country. You amaze me, Steve. You scare me sometimes. I don't see how you do it all. Yeah, and your newsletter. Sorry, had a little blank here. The name of your newsletter goes out what every
Yep.
morning, every week.
Anderson Agency Report, yeah,
Yeah,
monthly.
yeah. Oh man, that is beautiful.
And my tech tips goes out weekly.
Well,
Yeah,
the
so
tech
a
tips
couple
is
of
that's the one I was talking about because that one I think you get
yep,
a jillion people see that every time. Man, that's good. Well,
yep.
what's this about? Let's go.
Well, George, thanks for having me. And yeah, it's actually came about as you mentioned that an article that I wrote on LinkedIn, and as a LinkedIn influencer, actually every month they provide us topics that they kind of gather people around and have various articles on a certain topic. This one happened to be the 2016 big idea, and basically I have really been captured by this idea of machine learning. And I'm not going to have time to get in real technical, and frankly I can't yet. I'm actually in the process of learning much more, but it's artificial intelligence, it's machine learning, it's really a whole bunch of kind of areas, and you know, kind of use this picture of IBM Watson, and that started a while ago, me looking at this, and I've really have explored over the last few months what impact these kinds of things might have. And I really want to, and I've used this quote quite a bit from Seth Godin, great marketer, multiple books, and he said in one of his blog posts, actually, one of his articles, that the question that gets asked about technology and really any change or new technology coming is almost always the wrong question, which is, how does this advance help our business? And I would insert their agency.
Right.
When the correct question is, how does this advance undermine our business model and require us or enable us to build a new one?
Ooh.
And I think that's a really important concept to keep in mind. It's not how does this help, but how does this disrupt?
Absolutely.
And certainly that term has been, you know, used a lot, certainly within our industry. But I think this is an area of growing possibilities, and that's what I want to chat about a little bit here today. Well, George, you kind of know about this. You actually, in a year ago, January of 2015, did a presentation on Watson, and in fact, I recommend people go back to, well, I can't remember, you looked up what number it was.
It's number 85. 85. Yeah, just go back on
number
the archives.
85. Yeah.
It was terrific.
And I would recommend you go back and look at that because you really went through kind of the IBM Watson and what goes into it and all of those kinds of things. And kind of what intrigued me was your question there, will Watson do your underwriting before 2020? And we actually have the answer to that question now, and the answer is yes, actually by 5 years.
Oh my God! You mean
one of the things that,
sorry,
one of the things that caught my
wow. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 5 years early. I mean,
oh, that's scary.
Yeah. I mean, Swiss Re in Australia and New Zealand, and this is actual quote. There's a longer article. Actually, if you go on LinkedIn and read my full article, I have all the links to all of this stuff in there. You can actually read all of the detail. But his quote, he said, IBM Watson. So what they've done is they've partnered with IBM Watson through the Watson API, Application Programming Interface. So they actually are tagging in or tying in to the Watson process to do underwriting. And so that's really fascinating. And here's the quote. You can see it on the screen. Watson, will do a whole lot of work and very quickly. There will be more accurate underwriting, and to a certain extent, it probably removes some human emotion in terms of decision making too. Now this is specifically for life insurance, but I think you can see as carriers start exploring more some of these options, and frankly they've been looking at this a long time. You and I both know that underwriting models for personal lines and small commercial have been there for a while, and systems or computers are making some of those initial decisions. And some of that was actually fairly sophisticated, but part of the problem was it was extremely expensive. And so agents couldn't tap into some of this knowledge-based learning, and I think that's one of the things that's starting to change fairly rapidly. And so let me just give you a couple of ideas here, and frankly, this started coming when I heard a gentleman speak at Accord, whose name right now is escaping me. I was going to write it down. He's head of Google Ideas, and he spent his keynote speech a good portion of the time talking about what Google is doing with teaching machines to learn. And so here are just a couple of areas where they are using machine learning. So search, that's kind of behind the scenes. That's okay. Speech recognition. So the Google Voice, their online telephone system, or speaking to Google Now and having Google understand what happens. Google Photos. This may seem simple, but it's fascinating to me. So Google Photos is a service that they've enhanced over the last 6 to 8 months, and you can upload your pictures and actually go into Google Photos and search for a person's face. And so their machine learning, their smart systems actually can read images on a picture and tell who it is.
Scary.
Well, that's pretty fascinating. What's interesting with Watson now is one of the biggest areas where Watson is being used is in medical diagnostics. And so, for example, for reading x-rays, where radiologists in the past would read it, Watson is being used because it can recognize changes in images, again, faster and quicker without emotion, which is, again, kind of an interesting thing. Certainly the driverless cars, and we won't spend time talking about that, but that's all machine learning too. As the cars add more data of driving information, the machine is able to make better decisions based on that information. And then the last one there is open sourcing Tensorflow. Now, most agents, I'm sure, haven't heard of Tensorflow, but it is actually the program behind everything else I just talked about. And they announced in November of 2015 that they were giving the source code away. So open sourcing means they were giving that away. So the tool that does all of this stuff, they are giving to anybody that wants to use it. What caught my attention was I was actually at an agency meeting. I was facilitating a meeting of some large brokers in the United States. There were about 13 or 14 brokers there. And I was talking to one of the people in the IT department for a large broker, and he had, that day it was announced, he had already downloaded the code and was starting to experiment with how they might use this type of machine learning within the agency. Now, it may take a year or two, or I don't know how long, to actually get something there, but the idea is they were already thinking about what it could do for them. So that's pretty interesting. Well, I captured this picture because this is an example of what machine learning can do. This happens to be one of the Google apps on a phone. This is an Android phone. And as you can see, it's using augmented reality. So you're taking, actually this is live, you're looking at the sign. It's in Portuguese, and it automatically translates, reads it, understands the words on the sign, and translates it back into English.
That's scary.
Again, little things, it's scary. It's really interesting.
Amazing.
In terms of what that might look like.
Yeah.
Well, as I mentioned, TensorFlow I think is kind of a big deal, and I kind of pulled this information out of the TensorFlow website. But if you want a little more detailed, kind of what it is, it's a very programmer specific. I didn't understand most of it, but I am starting to get the concept of what it will be able to do in the right hands. And as you can see, it was developed by Google engineers for their own stuff, and conducting machine learning and deep neural network research. All of those are really kind of words that are used to understand how to teach a machine to learn. And one of the things the Google Ideas guy said at Accord was they can take now a machine, they can give it the rules to a game and just let it go, meaning turn it on. The machine will play the game according to the rules, and it will learn the best strategy to win at that game in a ridiculously short period of time.
Brother.
So that's, again, just, I know it may sound a little futuristic, but the point is it's here now. And I think that's what we need to start thinking about, how agents might be able to use some of this. Again, another quote, machine learning is the secret sauce for products of tomorrow, building in the capability of customizing and personalizing the customer experience. And that, to me, is the key phrase here. It's not about replacing agents and getting rid of agents. It's about agents being able to create customized and personalized experiences for their clients and customers. And so let's take a look at, what that might look like. Well, a first step in all of this is guided conversations. And actually, we've had these for a while, and I'm going to kind of, again, put these up here. We've had these types of things for a while. It's the programming if-then type of thought process, meaning if someone says this, then do that. If they say that, then do this. And that's a standard programming. You can create literally hundreds or thousands of if-then statements, and a computer can go through them very, very rapidly. What's changing is the tools now to allow anybody without programming knowledge to create these guided conversations. So again, insurance companies in their underwriting systems, their automated underwriting systems, primarily for personal lines and small commercial, use this type of logic and thinking, but it costs a lot of money. And so no programming required, and at a cost that's available. Now, why do I say all of this? Because I've actually seen it. I was actually earlier, late December, had an opportunity to visit a company who's in the insurance technology space, small company, not real big, but very forward-thinking, that actually has this product in development right now and probably will be available in, first quarter 2016. And MVP means
most valuable
Excuse me,
player.
you can cut that out if you want.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Don't worry
Actually,
about it.
minimum, I had a sneeze there, sorry.
You can do that. It's allowed.
Minimal viable product. MVP is a minimal viable product to get it out there. And I actually created, and I talk about this in my LinkedIn article, I actually created a guided conversation that helped answer the question, I bought a new boat, what insurance coverage do I need? And I was able, literally in probably 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, without any understanding of the system, actually be able to create that step-by-step process. And again, the tool's going to be available. It'll be available to anybody. And so I think there's some really interesting implications that are available. And so let's take a look at what I consider, at least, some of the benefits of this type of process. And again, I'm going to go ahead and put these up here so I can
That's great.
Make sure we all have it. So here are some benefits. Capture knowledge, skill, and experience. George, as you and I both know, we have a various names, it's called, but a silver tsunami, a silver crisis. There are a lot of us in the insurance industry that are nearing retirement age. And frankly, we have a lot of knowledge, experience, skills. There's just a lot that we have to offer. And the question has been, how are other generations, how are long-term people going to capture that knowledge and experience that we have and be able to apply it in their situations? Well, I think these kinds of tools are perhaps one way that we can actually start doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So capturing that experience, understanding, what are the questions you would ask in an underwriting scenario? How would you handle this customer service issue? Now, I know some agents are out there. I can almost hear them saying, well, isn't that my job? I mean, as an agent, I take care of the customer. I answer the questions. I do all of this. And I think that's, again, back to that Seth Godin quote, which I'll pull back up here in just a second.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, how does this advance undermine our current business model? Because can you create an online agent? Can you create, using very sophisticated systems, somebody who can answer the mundane, repetitive questions that people call in now or email in to your agency? And I think the answer is yes, to a certain degree. And so there are a growing number of people that want answers when? Now,
No.
when they want it, on whatever device they happen to be using at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so as an agency, we still are in the mindset of what? Well, we're open, 9 to 5. If you call in or email us then, we'll respond. But frankly, I might want to have a question at 9 p.m. at night. And if it's one of those mundane questions, I think a computer probably, if it's smart enough, can provide me a pretty good answer.
Great.
I don't believe, and I'll reinforce this before we finish, I don't believe that means agents are obsolete. I think it means agents and what they do has to be transformed. So another benefit, consistent answers. How many times could I call into an agency asking the same question and get different answers? Staff has different levels of training. You have very experienced people and brand new people. You have all of those kinds of things. So could this body of knowledge now that we have captured provide consistent answers? And perhaps, and I didn't even put this on here, but perhaps it's a valuable training tool for those new people coming in, where they can go in and ask their own questions and get that knowledge, experience, answer back for themselves. I think attract new talent. One of the biggest issues we have, and have faced for a few years now, is that insurance doesn't sound very sexy. And I think one of the biggest issues is this generation, again, whether you agree or like or not, doesn't matter, this generation doesn't want to get into a dead-end job. They want a career path. They want to know they can develop and move forward. And so if there are ways we can take the mundane out of what they do and allow them then the creativity to think and do new programs and I think all kinds of creative things that they can do, that may be a way to attract some of the younger talent that we desperately need into our organization.
That's a great point.
Certainly
Steve.
increase.
Yeah, I'm thrilled with that point because you're so right. I see these young guys get so frustrated. Well, go ahead. I don't want to take your shot, but boy, I love that point.
No. And I think that is, again, a potential key because, think about it, George. A kid coming out of college, they come into an agency. What do they see? They see, agency staff sitting in cubicles and processing, right?
Right.
And answering the same question over and over and over and over again, multiple times a day or multiple times a week or a month. And they go, well, I don't want to work here. That's not what I went to college for. That's not what I want to do. And again, we could argue a little bit. They have to pay their dues and all of that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, maybe there are ways we can engage them differently than what we did as we were coming and growing and learning and developing in the business. So I think that's a key idea.
Me too.
Increase profitability. And again, it's not getting rid of staff, but I frankly think we're going to have a huge problem because we won't be able to find staff, even to get rid of. I think that could be a real issue. So helping with profitability, again, so the agent and the agency staff can spend their time on the complicated matters that really does add value to a relationship. Not the mundane, I got a boat, what do I need? Go through, here's some stuff, and then, by the way, when that conversation, that guided conversation is completed, it pings perhaps a CSR to follow up with a phone call just to touch, saying, hey, I know you got some information there. Was anything you didn't understand or anything else I can help you with? But not that long conversation. This next point I am really excited about, automated annual reviews. And the reason is, I guess, 2 points. One is every agency should do every year at a minimum an account review on every single account in their office. Now that happens with, larger commercial, mid-market and large commercial. Frankly, I think it happens very little on personal lines and very little in small commercial. But there are huge opportunities for upselling, cross-selling, touching people, and I think these guided conversations could go through that checklist that some of you have. I know agents have them. Whether they use them is certainly a question, but having that personalized experience, and I want to emphasize that because I think that's the key. You're not taking the personalization away done properly. You're adding more personalization and customization, and frankly, that's what the Googles and the Apples and the Amazons of the world are doing. They are creating personalization using technology.
Steve, this is so coincidental. I just can't believe it, because last week's Monday morning by Bart Baker was on Gap. He has a whole system that it's total, it's the annual review and all that, but it's systematized so neatly. And when he hears this, he's going to flip, because he probably does. He's so ahead of most of the world. But if any of you didn't hear that last week, go back to get that. And because you can use that one now, and you'll be all set up on this automated one. This is, what, Steve, another word that's coming to my mind is commoditization here. Because, we talk about Geico's of the world and commoditizing, but this is going to be a whole step further into commoditization, which means we have to come back to the personality and the relationship situation.
Yeah, and I actually might take the view that this actually helps do away with commoditization.
Yeah.
Because with guided conversations, we can show where the differences are.
Oh, yes.
We can ask questions about coverage, about what drivers are on the policy, about all of these kinds of things that actually make a difference in a policy. So policies aren't all the same. Using these types of tools, we can begin planting the questions in our prospect's mind and provide them some information and then follow up. It's not that I just turn off and I never talk to them again, but I'm talking to them at an appropriate point.
And you can be sure that
and I think that's, again,
the Geicos of the world are going to use this. Absolutely. I'm sure they're way ahead of us on this.
No question about it. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And again, I think that's where we need to make sure our mindset is correct.
Right.
And then the last point here on this is customized FAQs, meaning, frequently asked questions. A lot of agency websites have it. Here are common questions. But what if we could customize and personalize that? Like my example of, hey, I bought a new boat. And by the way, these systems, you can just ask, what's your question? They type the question in, and these systems actually parse or break apart the sentence, pull out the words, and then guide the conversation based on what somebody's actually put in. That's where the interesting possibilities in my mind. So we're creating this customized experience and responding in an appropriate way.
Yeah.
And again, all of the things I talked about, capturing knowledge, building in that expertise, et cetera. So I told you I'd come back to this slide because I think now the question really is, will this help your business or require you or enable you to build a new one or think differently? And I think that's what I'm trying to do with this conversation. So a couple quotes out of the article. I do recommend you go read the whole thing so you can kind of get my whole mindset or my thought process in terms. I just pulled a couple of these out. Those agents that embrace new technology and find better ways to engage with the consumer, and to me that's a real key point. How do you engage with the consumer? Will always find opportunity. For those agents that can see the opportunity, machine learning tools will provide another way to engage and interact with the digital consumer. And frankly, I think that digital consumer there are getting to be more and more and more of them. Certainly you have clients right now who will not want this stuff. I get that. Do what you're doing. Continue to do it well. But as we're transitioning from the older consumer to the younger digital, and not always younger, by the way, I keep correcting myself on that, consumer, we need to think differently about how we do this. And then I do not believe this technology will replace the need for agents. Today's consumers demand value. They want to engage with people who provide products and services, and they want it when they want it, anytime, day or night.
Good, I love that.
But here's a big but. I probably should have put a big but in there. For agents who are simply order takers, machine learning will likely be a threat because it will be much harder for them to justify why someone would want to do business with them because of the options and the opportunities.
Good point.
And then kind of finally, George, is using machines that can learn just might provide an edge. Agents need to compete effectively in a 24/7 world. So I'm pretty excited about it. It certainly, the article has resonated. It's been viewed, I don't know how, over 20,000
oh my gosh,
views.
that's phenomenal.
I've had, 500 likes, 80 some comments. So those listening, I invite you to go to LinkedIn and look that up. And I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so if you'd like to connect there, send me a request, and I'll be glad to accept that.
Steve, when they go to LinkedIn,
I think it's something we need to.
When they go to LinkedIn,
Yep.
how do they find it when they go into LinkedIn? I mean, I go to LinkedIn all the time.
It's in LinkedIn. It's in LinkedIn Pulse, and they should be able to search for machine learning, something along those lines. I probably will go ahead and put a link, I don't think I have yet, on my website, steveanderson.com, that will link directly to it.
Good.
But yeah, it's been promoted by LinkedIn Pulse editors to the insurance and financial services. So many people may have already kind of glanced at it and not thought it was worth reading. So anyway,
I'm one of the 20,000.
So George, I think that's, yeah, well,
I'm one of the 20,000.
I think that's,
yeah, go ahead.
Kind of you starting the conversation a year ago. Think of the progress now that's being made in just a year, and what's going to happen in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I think there's some interesting opportunities, but we need to be thinking openly and differently how we're going to approach, engage, and interact, and personalize the experience for our clients.
You know what I'm thinking about as you talk here, and I think of the complexities, and you talk about the IBMs and the Googles and all the people with the, with the big bucks and everything else, and I think of the independent agent out there in Farmington, New Mexico, or wherever, and what's he do about it? And then I all of a sudden I wonder, do you know of any? Well, I suspect there are going to be many, many entrepreneurs who will have all the answers for this and be selling it like crazy. I mean, the big agency management, we would think that they'd be way ahead of the game. But what about the associations? I think maybe it might be time now for the associations to appoint a machine committee. I don't know what they would call it. Something, Have you heard of anybody doing that? I haven't. Huh?
No, I haven't. In fact, I don't think most people really is on their radar yet. Certainly none of the vendors that I am aware of are looking or thinking about this. As I said, I'd had the opportunity, was invited into this company to really look at what they're doing and offer some thoughts and suggestions on how it could be developed. I think you will see this in 2016, more options available at a lower cost. To me, that's sort of the tipping point we're at. IBM Watson's expensive. Agents can't afford to tap into that, and they don't have the programming expertise to be able to do that. What's being built now is kind of a middle layer that hides the programming and allows agencies now to create their own. And in fact, one of the things I think what will happen is with some of these platforms is you'll have people, perhaps like me, actually create the conversations and then make them available to agents because, frankly, the conversations are similar.
We better not retire. We better stay in there.
I know it. I know. There's too much fun stuff going on.
Yeah, this is wild.
And think about this.
What?
Think about this. Think about tying this system into the information that's available about your client in an agency management system. So now the machine
can do right.
understands the coverages, the carrier,
Uh-huh.
what the policy forms for that carrier say. I mean, I think there, as we kind of build this out, and it'll take time, but as we build this out, I think there's some pretty interesting implications and possibilities. And again, for those agents that will, will be willing to think about something different than what they've been doing.
Yeah, and contact Steve, and I know Steve responds, and that's a really good thing. So if you have questions, please feel free to do that. I certainly see. I think what I'm getting motivated here is I'm listening to this more and more. I suspect we're going to have many more Monday mornings in this direction in the future. Wouldn't you think? It's a wonderful opportunity for us to stay ahead.
Oh yeah, I think.
Yeah, we're going out to
Yep. No,
100,000
I
people
do
now, so
think.
that's fine, huh? Oh, well, listen, thank you so much. This
Yep.
is great because you lead us, and you have all this time, and I greatly appreciate it. And it's meant a lot to you mean a lot to a lot of people, and on a personal basis, I want to thank you personally for what you do. I know you do it to
Well,
make a
George,
living, but
thank you. I appreciate that.
well, it's all true. I can't help it.
Well, making a living, actually, I do it because I really like it. Certainly making a living helps, but I can't imagine something else I would enjoy more. Just really helping the industry understand all of these kinds of things and how they can effectively use them and not just be afraid of them or try and hide from them, but how to use them as tools. And that's all they are. They're just tools. And as long as we keep the customer in mind, we'll be successful and continue to be that way.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you again. And for the rest of you, again, don't hesitate to call Steve at any time or talk to him because he responds. And in the meantime, then I'll see you next Monday morning.